Hi there, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast.
For 15 years now, we've been proudly helping breeders promote hundreds of thousands of pedigree livestock with our easy-to-use animal management-driven website software.
And let's not forget about Hired Hand Live, where over $1 million worth of livestock is sold online each year.
We're excited to bring you market trends, sales data, advice from your fellow breeders, and stories from the ranch.
Our software makes managing your website and your animals a breeze, so you can focus on what you love.
So let us handle your digital chores while you tune in to another episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. On today's podcast, I'm joined with Angela Bivens of Whitestone Ranch in Hico, Texas. Angela and her husband are raising registered Texas Longhorns, as well as Herefords, Beefmasters, and Barbados Blackberry sheep. Thanks for joining me today, Angela.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Why don't you start by just telling me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into how you got started in Longhorns.
Well, to start with, I grew up for the first portion of my life on a registered Hereford ranch. My dad showed Herefords, so I was kind of used to cattle at a very young age, although I had come to find out now that really didn't count because I really didn't know anything I know now. I have figured that out. But anyway, over the years, my husband and I owned and operated the Pet Palace in Houston. Right after COVID, we decided to retire. We got a pretty good offer on the business, and we were a little bit nervous about staying in business for ourselves, not knowing what was going to go on in the future with lockdowns. So we decided to do an early retirement, which led us out to the ranch. We had purchased the ranch right prior to COVID. And so that was our intention. Just getting out here was a little sooner than we expected. We had hoped to get all the infrastructure done prior to being here. But just like life, things don't turn out like you expect or planned. It's someone else's plan. So now my husband and I are retired from our business in Houston and up here full time. And this is our full-time life for sure. So we are at the ranch 24/7 pretty much.
Well, one thing I picked up on there is you mentioned that raising cattle in the past didn't help much with raising Longhorns today. Tell me a little bit about that and what you mean by that.
I think as a youngster, you just don't really realize the magnitude, the dynamics involved. The biggest thing for me was, I remember when I went into the FSA office when we bought the ranch and we're coming here, they were like, well, you're not a rancher, you're a farmer. And I remember walking out of there thinking, what? No, I'm not a farmer. I'm not going to farm. But that's so much of a big part of what we have had to do out here. And I think what you constantly have to do, because the most important thing for us is I want to do the best for my animals that I possibly can, whether it means minerals or or their feed or whatever. So we have done so much trying to get the land in better shape so that the protein content is higher on their grazing, etc. When I grew up, I mean, everything was just there and done. And we saw, we went to the shows and everything just happened and he won ribbons and all that. But there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that, at the shows and the events and sales, you just don't even realize it, unless you're in the day-to-day of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned shows, so and I know that that's how you all got started in Longhorns, but why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners who might not know kind of the story of your first one and how it kind of sucked you into this whole thing that has your herd at the size that it's at now.
Well, we've always loved animals, and we had started trying to volunteer stuff with the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and we had done the calf scramble a couple of years. And Jean Ollier had said, hey, instead of doing that this year, why don't you just, we're having an auction for a calf to be in the Longhorn Project out at Johnson Space Center. And why don't you just support that here locally, since know you want to do things local and get that going. I'm like, well, okay, but what I'm going to do with a cow, because the deal is you own the cow and you just, put it out there, and then kids from basically CCISD show it and take care of it for you. You just provide the financial portion of it. And so that's what we did. And we went to we did the benefit, and of course won the auction. Ended up the actual steer that we were going to get, we ended up not getting because it ended up not being a right fit for the program. So we had to go out and search for we decided to go for a heifer. We had several we were choosing from, but we ultimately chose one at the Randolph's property at Lonesome Pines. The bad thing about it is she ended up doing so well in everything that we put her in. We were spoiled because she won so much during her career. In fact, Henry said that which he's the one of the guys at the project out at JSC, that she won more back-to-back championships and more championships than any of the other cows they'd had out there. And it was just crazy. I mean, and she won like the high point at the Millennium, and then we took her to the Kentucky show the next year, and she won her class there. And it's been, the bad thing is it's hard when you've got one that's made it to the top and done so well, then you're really spoiled, and that's all you want. But so she started everything for us, and just like everybody says, Longhorns are like potato chips. You can't just have just one, unfortunately.
And what was her name?
Her name is Kettlles Ginger Snap. So she was our very first, and she's done really well. And we have two of her daughters, WSR Cinnamon Twist and WSR Pumpkin Pie. And they look pretty much like her mother, except for they're all red. And Cinnamon has gotten very brindled, but I don't look for the other two to get brindled. So we're kind of looking to bring some color because we love everything about them. They just need a little flash to make it all the way to the top in the futurities these days.
So I noticed when I looked at your website that you all maybe, it looks like, went back to the Randolphs and purchased a few more, or really liked that Black Kettle influence. I noticed that you had some of his lineage on there. Tell me a little bit about how your program changed from that one animal to where it is today.
We really do like Kettles. They've done really well. And what's funny is Snap Crackle Pop, she was also one of the ones that was offered us at the same time Ginger Snap was, but she was born in July, and they had told me, hey, show Kettles, you really want to try to, in the ring, you really kind of want to get them in January. So that I wanted her, but we went with Ginger Snap because of her birth date. And it was funny, at one of the sales that I think it's a legacy, I'm not sure which sale, because I bid on her from the house. John called me and said, don't you let this cow get away from you. She's going to go cheap. Don't let her go. And so that's the first time I ever bid on a cow on live. And I kept bidding and bidding and bidding. And I unfortunately didn't give up, and come to find out I was bidding against Krause's Circle K, who also wanted her. So it was kind of funny because we didn't know either one was bidding. I was online and he was there. But I also did not realize that she was the same cow that she was kind of more of my top pick than Ginger Snap at the time, way back when I got Ginger Snap. But she did exceptionally well in futurities, and because that was what she did instead of haltered, and Ginger Snap kind of went more towards the haltered show ring, and they both just excelled in both. So their line has done really, really well in the show circuit for futurity and haltered in both. So that's kind of one of the main things that we are going forward with in our herd is those two girls. Plus we have a couple others. And we ended up buying another one at his reduction sale that happened to be related to Ginger Snap also. And they're both really big girls, and we really like them.
And now let's hear from our advertisers.
When it comes to buying and selling livestock, trust is everything. At Hired Hand Live, we have a platform that breeders and buyers rely on, whether participating in a live auction, an internet-only event, or hosting their own online auction. Our secure, user-friendly system ensures that your bid counts, and every transaction is backed by our commitment to integrity.
Whether you're a part of a consignment sale or planning your own internet auction, Hired Hand Live connects breeders and buyers live and online. Discover why breeders trust us with their livestock auctions. Visit hiredhandlive.com today.
From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
So what would you say is kind of the theme of your breeding program?
We really love traditional Longhorns. Unlike probably a lot of the breeders out there, we're not really interested in chasing, the 100-inch horn, because I don't know what I would do with them in my pasture or in my trailer. I love the Longhorns that are around, I would say, 86, 88, that's about my max. I definitely don't think we want to go over 90. We really, like I say, like the traditional. We're focusing, of course, on conformation most, but what we need to bring to our herd is a little bit more color. So that's what we're trying to really hone in on now, is focusing on how to get a little bit more color into our herd with Ginger's line for sure.
And how many head are you all up to today in regards to the Longhorns?
In Longhorns of Manas, I think we have got, the already have had babies probably 12 or 13, and I've got 3 more that we're about ready to AI also this fall. So we won't get much bigger with the mamas. That's really, even though we have several hundred acres of grazing pasture, we don't have that because we have a lot of outcroppings and mountains and rocks. So we really probably need to stay around there. The thing I'm trying to figure out is, how am I ever going to be willing to give them up? I don't know how anybody does that. So far, we've taken 2 steers to the sale barn, and it crushed me. And I have days that I still think about that. So I don't know how people do that.
I think that's part of the reason the herds can multiply so quickly, is they are hard to get rid of.
Yes, I mean, they all have the coolest personalities, every one of them, and you have such a relationship with them, and it's just, you walk amongst them, and it's like, how can you sell your child?
Would you say that that's one of your favorite parts now that you have several, or are there other things that you enjoy as well?
I have found it I've been amazed that you can walk out there and look at them, and each different girl out there, I just look at them and think, she's so special because of this, and I love this about her and love this about her. And a lot of times it's, of course, I'm so pleased with their conformation, of course, but beyond that, it's just their personalities are really cool. And I just enjoy looking at them and having that relationship with them, and every one of them, I can feed out of my hand. I know a couple of, brewers like, don't do that, but I can't help but do that. I love interacting with them.
So you mentioned the Randolphs with Lonesome Pines, as well as the Nassau Project. Are there any other organizations or breeders that have kind of helped you get started, or that you've gone and visited, or maybe learned some tips and tricks from?
Part of the different local TLBA organizations, they've had educational days, or different events. So I've gotten to tour Torkelson's, we've been out to Bowlings, we've been down to Co-Copper as well. I've really enjoyed all going and viewing all those ranches, because we're in the process of, we did get our chute right away, but we're in the process of trying to do the rest of the infrastructure and fencing, all that. So it's so beneficial. And they've all been so helpful in sharing their knowledge. There's so many more. Like, I'm a podcast person. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook, but I'm a real big podcaster because I've spent so much time on the tractor plowing fields and seeding and all that since we needed that hours on end I'm listening to podcasts. I'll download them and then I'll, go listen to the field. In Tip to Tail and your podcast, and I've been able to kind of make mental notes, or, at least I know I can go back to those and remember people that y'all have talked to that have shared some stuff that I know I want to go visit their ranch when we're in the areas. So I'd like to go to El Coyote. I'd like to go to Hubble's up there. There's several more that I'd like to go to just from learning that I know that they'd have so much to offer. And I'm kind of the person that I love to do, research, and probably to a fault, just because, I don't know, being retired, I don't feel like I have a lot of time to make mistakes. And I really just want to learn everything I can from everybody who's gone before us. And, they've got it going on, quite honestly. So I don't need to recreate any wheels these days.
Well, let's talk about infrastructure a little bit. So you mentioned that you have your chute. What else are you working on? What are you trying to learn, and plan out that you feel like is valuable, for other breeders to consider if they're in your same shoes?
It's about 210 acres, but it didn't really have any infrastructure other than some old pipe fencing and it around a couple of some old sheep barns. And so we've already put up a new barn, and we've got some pens going in there, but we're wanting to do our working pens. And I know a lot of people that I've talked to have said, you'll probably change it, put it up, you'll want to change it. So because you'll have to see how it works for you. So I had Russell Hooks come out here and kind of drive the property with us to give us some ideas on how things could flow, because I think that's, unless you've done this, and had the experience, you really don't know how things need to flow or how to work cattle and what's going to be the best thing. And so putting up all that kind of infrastructure like that is a lot of work. And so I definitely am looking for other expertise on that. We just got a big order of timeless fence in, so we're fixing to start breaking up into pastures, because rotational grazing is really important, I think, for us, especially since we don't have all the lush green areas from down in the Houston and area where we've been for the last 30 years. We're up here in Central Texas, and we get a lot of wind, which dries things out. And of course, we've been through drought like everybody has the last couple of years. We want to try to get the right infrastructure in, and the whole working pens. We're going to cover the working pens area, because I know that that's important to keep the cows comfortable. And we know it really can get hot here for sure. So we're trying to get that all in place. And I'm glad we've waited to do it, because, of course, you go to a ranch and it works great and you're loving it. And you go to another ranch, you pick up another little thing you can add to it. You go to another ranch and there's another thing to add. And plus, everybody is such a wealth of information. They always are offering something that you haven't thought about, because you've not been in that situation before. So that's really been, good. So we've got notes, and we keep tweaking. And I feel like when we finally get there that, we'll have the best scenario for our place that we could have.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real, and unsolicited advice and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink. We're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Are you a new Longhorn breeder eager to educate yourself on market trends and sale prices? Stay in the loop with our text messages. Get the latest updates, events, and insider tips on all things Longhorns delivered straight to your phone.
Stay informed by texting website to 888-700-8131, then reply with Longhorns. That's website to 888-700-8131. Sign up today and take your breeding program to the next level.
Hey, if you love From the Pasture with Hired Hand, why not go check out my podcast, The Big Iron Podcast with Andrew Shigori, where we dive into the world of registered Texas Longhorns and what it means to be an agriculture entrepreneur in the modern world, with a little southern flair, of course. Find The Big Iron Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, did I see on your website that you all started making your own hay as well?
Oh my gosh, yes, that was an experience. So never did I think we were going to be baling hay. We have our property is 60 acres of grazing, and I'd say the first 2 years we had all these appointments of people coming out. They were going to, cut and bale for us, and we're like, okay. And then they didn't show up. I mean, thank goodness we didn't have any cows the first 2 years because they, wouldn't have had any hay. Yeah, because most people have a lot of acreage. The people that bale and all that are going to those places. And since we only had 60 acres, they just kept putting us on the back burner. And then at that point, when we figured out they weren't coming, it was too late to bale. So we just went ahead and bit the bullet a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, and we just bought our own equipment. We were lucky to find some secondhand, thank goodness, around the area. And so my husband cuts and I rake and he bales. And so we never thought we would do that. I mean, I'm almost 65. I never thought I'd be learning that at 65 and doing that here at the ranch. But in fact, he's baling today. That's why he's not with us. But he's like, I can't stop. I got to do this. We never realized that, just getting hay was going to be a difficult portion of it and making that all happen.
Are there any other sustainability practices that you've incorporated into ranching or into your breeding program specifically?
As far as in the farming part of it, I'm obsessed with dragging my fields. I've trying to create the manure spread all over and getting that in there. And we've also, like I said, I do get soil samples all the time and do that. So that's as far as the farming part of it. I'm pretty religious with that. First, I was really big on trying to collect rocks and getting them off the fields, but I think I can breed rocks faster than anybody else in town for sure. Every night I have baby rocks show up, it seems like. But as far as my breeding program, I've always focused on AI because there are so many wonderful bulls out there and they all have something unique to offer. And so I've never really, I knew you were going to ask me at some point what my favorite bull is. And I so struggled with that. And I really don't have one. But I'm really been trying to learn to study bloodlines and all that. I've always been asking a lot of the breeders for recommendations and listening to that. And then what's fun is when I'm at the shows and they're calling out the pedigrees and all that at the sales, I'm like, oh, that one's in my bloodline. That one's in my bloodline. So that's always cool. Right now, we're focused on each of my girls, like everybody that does AI program, what does she need and who can I get that'll give her that? And so that's what I'm really focused on as far as that goes. And then I have done fleshing of Ginger Snap because right now she's only given me, red girls. And I want to try to develop my herd with her a little quicker. So I've got a couple of hers and I've got a couple of my Herefords I'm using as receps for that. So I'm excited to see what happens with that, of course. And that's kind of what we're doing right now with that.
And is the embryo and AI work something that you've taught yourself, or is that something you rely on a local expert for?
I've had Justin Grant working on that with me most recently. I won't probably ever do that because I'm very particular about everything getting done as close to perfection as possible. I do want to take a class. I really do try to learn things. And so I do want to go take the palpitation class. I want to take an AI class, but never to do it. I just more to understand everything about it so that I can make sure that my girls are in the best possible shape for that program to happen, for the best results possible. I just like to learn all the time.
So earlier when we were talking about ways that you grew your herd a little bit, you mentioned bidding online. Are there other sales or other ways that you've used Hired Hand Live to add to your herd, or, maybe other stories of some you lost out on that you wished you hadn't?
I would say we haven't really done a lot of online sales, but that one. In the live auctions, we haven't done a lot. I've mostly gone to, like Randall said, weather or whatever, and selected mine right there on site. But like when the biggest thing I use hired hand for, and which is the main one, or your the other people that use your your software, is when I'm talking to different breeders about helping me select a bull, is I like to get on there and click around and see the progeny of the different bulls, because that helps me decide a lot of times which way to go if we've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 or something like that. And it's so much easier because everything's at your fingertips at that site. And that's why I went with y'all's software, is because when I was trying to do that before I had a website, I wasn't really in tune to, y'all being out there. But I noticed that certain websites, that I would go to was like really easy to click and go and do that research on. And so when it came down to start thinking about the website, I just, it's kind of a slam dunk, because again, like I said, I want to get everything right the first time. I've always hated do-overs. I want to get it right and move on to something else, because, that's time wasted, I feel like. So that's kind of what I do as far as when I'm looking on the sites. I use, like the websites for research on AI stuff. And then basically I use Facebook to learn things. I love it when people post about, oh, this happened to my cow. Look at it. What do y'all think? I go to every one of those and I read every message, because when it happens on my ranch, I want to know all the different things I think it could be to help me narrow it down, or so that I can share with the vet, because I don't have all that knowledge that these breeders do and these experiences. And so if I'm sitting there looking at my cow at 8 o'clock at night, which luckily I haven't had the situation, but I've seen other people on Facebook do, I already want to know, okay, somebody on Facebook said it could be this, this, or this. So I can call the vet and say, okay, maybe this, or this. What do you think? Or call a lifeline friend, another breeder in the evening. And then I just feel like I can get to the end result quicker, and resolve whatever issue it will be. I think that's my biggest fear about being a rancher, a new breeder that doesn't know a lot, is I just don't want anything to happen to my animals without me being prepared for that situation. That's a lot of reason why we actually went with Longhorns, I think, is because, the easy calving, and they're very resilient and all that. And that was a main reason for us having that be our focus. Besides, they're so beautiful. I mean, that's a side note.
So you mentioned you use some of our customers' websites to do research. Can you tell me maybe who the last 3 in your search history were?
Oh, definitely always Limbs and Pines is always up there. Other than that, I don't know. I skipped around a lot. Now, when I was trying to figure out my website, I can tell you this. I don't know if everybody does, but I looked at every single, not kidding you, Longhorn site that you have on your website.
That's a big task.
Like I said, that's how I do. I do my research, and there were a lot of really good ones. I think Green Pasture Cow Company was one I looked at a lot. I like that. I think it's Schumer. I liked theirs. I enjoyed being on a certain websites more than others, because it really draw me in to want to read about them and their experience. And those two, I remember, drew me into wanting to click through the pages for some reason. So I enjoyed those.
Overwhelmed with your digital chores? Let us lend a hand. From websites and animal management to internet auctions, graphic design, marketing, search engine optimization, and more, Hired Hand Software is your hired hand for all things digital.
Specializing in pedigree, livestock, breeds, and beyond, we handle the tech so you can focus on the animals you love. Visit hiredhandsoftware.com today, where your digital chores just got a whole lot easier.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Cantera Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at CanteraCattleCompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing canteracattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
So what would you say that your breeding program and your ranch itself will look like 5 years from now?
Well, my goal would be all my infrastructure is done so that my focus can go back to hitting some futurities. We haven't been able to go to futurities this year because number one, we really don't have anybody in the right age to go. So hopefully, I've got two little girls right now that I've just started weaning last night. That was a fun evening with all the mooing going on between moms and babies. So I'm hoping to get back into the futurity ring this coming year and having more. And then next year, I'm hoping to have more babies drop that will definitely hit the ring as well for that. So that's my goal, is to be hitting those, because I really do enjoy the futurities. And then as far as the ranch, I envision it now. Since we got rain this year, we planted the last 3 years and nothing happened, so we had to replant every year. We finally got some cline growing in, so next year I expect to see a nice stand of grazing for the cattle, so they don't have to be on hay and liquid feed so much. So that's my goal going forward, is having everything in place that they need to flourish, basically.
Well, I know you mentioned your husband couldn't be with us today because he's making hay. So you'll either use this to your advantage or not. I'm not sure. But can you share a funny Longhorn story with us?
I don't know if we really have any funny Longhorn story at the ranch. I think that the funniest Longhorn story I probably have that always comes to my mind is when Kettlles Ginger Snap, we were at the Millennium Futurity, and there's a Calcutta there. And I remember John Randolph walked up to me, because before we'd go to futurities and he would always bid on my cows because I didn't know what I was doing. So this one, he told me, listen, if you don't bid on her, I'm bidding on her because she's going to win. She's going to take it down. And I'm like, okay. I've never done a Calcutta before. What do I do? He's like, well, just bid. And so I'm like, okay. So she came up and I'm bidding and I'm trying to look up at him. And I'm like, okay, am I doing right? And like, I'm bidding, it's going. Well, end of the story, she's up to $2,500 and I'm still bidding. And I thought he told me to keep bidding. When it was all said and done, I mean, I won. I mean, like, I have to. She's my girl and she's going to win and whatever. But when it was all over, he was like, my God, why didn't you stop? I'm like, well, you said she was going to win. I wasn't going to her mom, I'm not going to not, bid for her. And he's like, well, these guys over here were bidding against you because they were not going to stop. But anyway, so she won high point, and, she took down the whole thing, and I walked away, with my big check with her. But since then, Calcuttas make me a little nervous because I have a hard time stopping if they're mine, especially how I think they're the best one there.
No, and John, I'm surprised your story didn't end with saying he was bidding against you after he told you to bid.
Well, on that one, he promised he wouldn't, because I let him bid all the other shows that we'd gone to. I said, you bid, I'm not going to, you bid. So he was making money off my animals because I didn't know what I was doing. But I remember we went to I think in Kentucky, Dylan was bidding against me. And finally I had to stop because his pockets were deeper than mine.
Well, I have a few questions about some of the other areas of your ranch. Are you okay if we switch gears for a little bit?
Sure.
All right. So tell me about your Gatling gun.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have always, for some weird reason, wanted a Gatling gun. I've always thought they were the coolest things. So we were at the Horn, but we came to a gun show a year ago, last January in Waco. And they had this really big, pretty black with gold trim Gatling. It looked original sitting up on the stand. And I walked in, I took a picture of my phone and was like, I want this. And my husband's like, what? He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, like one of my birthdays, I want this. So we've been kind of looking around for about a year or whatever. And we happened to be at my first horn showcase last year, which it was great, by the way. It was my favorite shows. But anyway, so when we were up there, the guy that sells, he's the only distributor of the Gatling gun that's, it's a complete exact replica size and everything of the Gatling gun. And he is up, I think, in El Reno, or he's right outside El Reno. I can't remember which one it is. But so we went over there and got it during one of the in between the show stuff going on and brought it home. And it was my birthday and my Christmas present for last year. And it's so super cool. And so when we always vacationed in the past, we would always go to places that were ranches, dude ranches, or places you could ride horses. And so when we got this property, we're like excited because now we don't have to go anywhere. We can shoot and do stuff on our own property. So yes, that's what we plan on doing. People coming out for, our bed and breakfast or, whatever, is they could come out and shoot the Gatling gun and have some fun with that. It does 45 long shots, so it's kind of a, it's a pretty fun thing. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, I know you all are still working on the bunkhouse, I believe, but tell me a little bit about kind of your end vision for that as well as it relates to like an Airbnb or, having guests out and stuff.
It's actually almost finished. I'm putting my final touches of decorating it. My dad used to be, after he got off the ranch and retired, he did limited edition arts, Western arts, and framed them and stuff. So I have a ton of that. So right now I'm just putting some of that on the wall. And I think I've got to get new sheets for the beds, and then it's ready to go. But it's totally 100% Wild West theme in there, but, it's super cool. So, and it's actually, when we built the barn, we built it so we could have a bunkhouse there so that people could do what we always did. We like to, when we left Houston and vacationed every year, we wanted to get out in the country. And so they can be right there with our show cattle if they want to come out and do the Gatling gun. And we're also going to do an Old West single action shooting range. That's our next thing to build, to where they can come out there. It's, family atmosphere kind of thing. You can dress up in Old West clothing. So that's to come. But meanwhile, you can stay in our bed and breakfast and do the Gatling gun, ride four-wheelers. We also have like over 100-foot elevation change in our property, and you can do rock climbing. There's natural footholds, plus we've added stuff, and you can rappel down also. That's just some kind of the things that we want to do, along with, I don't know if I mentioned this, but my husband's a pilot, a private pilot. So in the property, right in the middle of both our mountains, there's an airstrip. So you can fly in on an airplane and spend the night in the bunkhouse and put some Longhorns, shoot the Gatling gun, do some four-wheeling, rappel, and go home.
Sounds like the perfect weekend.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll introduce people to some Longhorns all the way, because, a lot of people don't see Longhorns, and it's kind of something you see in the movies, or you see when you go to Fort Worth stockyards or whatever. So we feel like we're going to attract some attention to those as well. So we just love everything that country life has to offer. We were in the big city of Houston for so many years, like 30 plus years. And we love walking outside and being silent and black sky, all the stars and every night. And it's a lot of work, but man, it's so worth it.
Well, when I was preparing for today's interview, I had to practice saying Barbados blackberry sheep a few times so I didn't mess up. And I'm dying to know, I did Google them, but can you tell me a little bit more about them and kind of how you fell into having those on the ranch as well?
It's a really small little herd of them, like very small, like we only have about 12. And we don't plan on getting a lot more of those. We've just bred. We had our first year of lambs. The Barbados black belly sheep, they're very hardy. They're much like the Longhorns, and they are very easy calving. I guess that lambing, I guess is the right word. See, I don't even know that lambing. They're very easy lambing, and they're very disease resistant also. So that's why we chose them. I had, when we first moved out here, we were clearing a lot of the fields and had a lot of brush, and a friend of mine, I said something about, hey, I know you suggested goats for clearing and all that, and she goes, you know what, I have goats, but what you really need to look at is these Barbados black-bellied sheep. And so we looked at them, and when we were excited to read it, when we read a lot about them, it just reminded us of the Longhorns, so it seemed like a little perfect fit. They're very sweet. The little ram we have is so loving and so sweet, and we were worried because everybody said, oh, the rams are mean. He's just a little lover. They're just very sweet, and they help keep the brush down. And we just have our little bitty herd. We had, I think we had 9 actually. We had withers, and we had 3 mamas, and then we just had 5 babies. So we plan to keep it right small like that, because we just want them to, keep the brush down in the different fields, and we're not going to grow them big. We got them to do a purpose, and a purpose without much need, much animal husbandry, so to speak.
Well, I feel like you've painted a really beautiful picture of your ranch, and I'm curious to see in 5 years where you all are at and all of the goals that you've reached and the ways that it's changed. With that being said, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to share with our listeners today?
Oh, no, I listened to your podcast, and I have to really agree with everybody of what they say is, buy quality. I was a little different than everybody else in my situation. We were lucky to buy quality right off the bat, and I'm glad that I don't have to worry about culling anything immediately, because we bought the best that we could find, and very happy because they were all really successful so far. But if they haven't done, a big limitation was just the right property. We could have probably chose property that would have been a lot easier. I don't know if they would have facilitated all of our desires, because we do want to do all the different activities out here. But man, it would have been easier if I would have had different grazing out here. If somebody's just getting into this and they don't have their property, I would really reach out to other breeders and find out, what the needs are as far as the grass. Because coming from a city, we just kind of thought grazing grass, and it's just not true. So that was our big deficit out here. We had the Longhorn part of it right. We just have to get the rest of it right also, so that we don't spend so much money on all the supplements and feeds and all that we've done.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. We'll be sure to link your website and some of the other breeders that you mentioned in the show notes, and just really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thank you. I've enjoyed visiting with you.